My wife, who cheated on me and left me while I was hospitalized, is now begging for forgiveness 12 years later. Should I forgive her? Hey Reddit. 12 years ago, my life took a drastic turn, and now, the woman who turned my world upside down is asking for my forgiveness. Let me take you back to where it all began. I was 32 years old, happily married to Emily, who was 29 at the time. We had been together for 5 years and married for 3. Our relationship wasn't perfect, whose is? But I believed we had a strong foundation. We had been through tough times together, like financial struggles and the challenges of balancing careers with personal lives. Through it all, I thought we were solid. Then came the accident. I was driving home late one evening after work when a drunk driver ran a red light and crashed into my car. The impact left me with multiple fractures, internal injuries, and a long road to recovery. I was rushed to the hospital and spent weeks in intensive care. Those first few days were a blur, but I remember waking up in pain, hooked up to machines, with Emily sitting beside me. She looked worried, and I took comfort in thinking she'd be there for me. But as the weeks turned into months, her presence at the hospital became sporadic. At first, I thought she was overwhelmed. I even encouraged her to take breaks and not overextend herself. Little did I know, she was already distancing herself emotionally. Things took a sharp turn when I noticed her spending more time on her phone during her visits. She'd laugh at messages and seem distracted. I asked her if everything was okay, and she brushed it off, saying work was stressful and she was talking to coworkers. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. One day, she came to the hospital acting particularly cold. She barely spoke to me and kept glancing at the clock. I asked her if something was wrong, and she just said she was tired. That night, she didn't come back. The next morning, a nurse handed me an envelope. It was from Emily. She didn't even have the decency to face me in person. In the letter, she wrote that she couldn't handle the stress of my condition and that she had found someone else who made her happy. She wanted a divorce. I can't even begin to describe the pain I felt reading those words. I was already at my lowest point, physically and emotionally, and now the person I thought would be my anchor was abandoning me. The days that followed were some of the darkest of my life. I spiraled into depression. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and I started questioning my worth. What had I done to deserve this? How could someone I loved so deeply betray me in such a cruel way? Emily moved out of our apartment while I was still in the hospital. She didn't take much, just enough to start a new life with her new boyfriend. I didn't have the energy or resources to fight her on the divorce terms, so I signed the papers as soon as I was able. The recovery process was grueling. Physical therapy was a daily battle, but the emotional wounds were even harder to heal. My friends were my lifeline during that time. They rallied around me, offering support and encouragement. I also started seeing a therapist, who helped me work through my feelings of betrayal and abandonment. Over the next few years, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I moved to a new city, started my own small business, and focused on my health. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't let Emily's betrayal define me. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Emily married the guy she left me for. They had a whirlwind romance and tied the knot within 6 months of our divorce. I didn't care to know the details. As far as I was concerned, she was out of my life for good. Fast forward 12 years. I'm 44 now and have found a sense of peace. My business is thriving, I've made some great friends, and while I haven't remarried, I've had a few meaningful relationships along the way. I thought I had left the past behind me until a few weeks ago, when Emily reached out. She sent me a long message on Facebook. In it, she said she had been thinking about me and wanted to apologize for what she did. She admitted that her marriage to the guy she left me for fell apart years ago. Apparently, he cheated on her repeatedly, and their relationship was a toxic mess. She said she had been in therapy and was working on herself, and part of that process involved making amends with the people she had hurt. Emily asked if we could meet to talk. She said she regretted everything and wanted to make things right. I haven't responded yet. I'm torn. On one hand, I feel like I've moved on and don't want to reopen old wounds. On the other hand, I wonder if forgiving her might bring me closure. Reddit, what should I do? Should I meet her? Should I forgive her? Update. Thank you all for your responses. I've spent the last few days reading through your comments, and they've given me a lot to think about. The consensus seems to be split. Some of you believe in forgiveness and closure, while others think I should leave the past in the past. After much deliberation, I decided to meet Emily. Not because I'm looking for reconciliation, but because I want answers. I want to understand why she thought it was okay to abandon me during one of the most vulnerable times of my life. We met at a quiet coffee shop. I arrived early, and as I waited, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and, strangely, curiosity. When Emily walked in, I was shocked. She looked so different from the woman I remembered. Her once vibrant demeanor had been replaced with a tired, worn-down appearance. She started the conversation by apologizing profusely. She said she had been selfish, immature, and unable to cope with the stress of my accident. She admitted that leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life. Emily told me about her failed marriage. The man she left me for turned out to be a serial cheater who treated her poorly. She said she had spent years in therapy trying to heal and that part of her recovery involved reaching out to me. I listened quietly, letting her pour her heart out. When she finished, I told her how her actions had affected me not just in the immediate aftermath, but in the years that followed. I explained the pain, the self-doubt, and the long journey it took to rebuild my life. She started crying and asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her I needed time to think about it. Another update. After our meeting, Emily started sending me messages almost daily. She apologized again and again, saying she hoped we could rebuild some kind of relationship even if it was just as friends. I took some time to reflect on what forgiveness means to me. I realized that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's actions or letting them back into your life. It's about letting go of the anger and resentment that weighs you down. With that in mind, I sent Emily a message. I told her that I appreciated her apology and that I forgave her, but I didn't think it was healthy for us to have any further contact. I explained that I had moved on and that reopening old wounds wouldn't benefit either of us. Her response was mixed. She thanked me for forgiving her but also accused me of being cold and unfeeling for not wanting to maintain a relationship. It was ironic, considering how she had treated me all those years ago. Final update. It's been a month since I last heard from Emily, and I feel a sense of closure I didn't know I needed. Forgiving her wasn't easy, but it was liberating. It allowed me to finally let go of the anger I had been carrying for so long. I realized that holding on to the pain wasn't just about Emily, it was about how I saw myself. For years, I wondered if her betrayal was a reflection of my worth, but now I see it for what it was, a reflection of her inability to handle adversity and commitment. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come. 12 years ago, I was broken and lost. Today, I'm strong, independent, and at peace with myself. Emily's betrayal no longer defines me, it's just a chapter in my story. I think about how much I've grown since those dark days. I'm no longer the man who was desperate for answers or validation. That chapter of my life ended long ago, and Emily's apology, while appreciated, didn't change the fact that I've moved on. Since this experience, I've thought a lot about forgiveness and the kind of life I want to lead. Forgiveness, I've realized, doesn't always mean re-entering someone's life or rekindling a connection. It means reclaiming your power. By forgiving Emily, I wasn't letting her off the hook, I was letting myself off the hook of bitterness and resentment. Those feelings didn't serve me anymore. They weighed me down for far too long, and I deserve to live a life free of that burden. I also took the time to reflect on the people in my life now, friends, colleagues, even distant relatives who've been a consistent source of support. This situation reminded me to appreciate the good relationships I've nurtured and to ensure I never take them for granted. While it's tempting to let moments of betrayal overshadow everything else, I've realized that focusing on the positive connections in my life brings far more fulfillment. For anyone reading this who has been betrayed or wronged, I hope my story serves as a reminder that healing is possible. Time, therapy, and support were the keys to my recovery, but so was accepting that closure doesn't always come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes, closure comes from within. You have to choose to release the pain, even when the apology you think you need might never come, or in my case, even when it does. As I write this, I feel a deep sense of gratitude. Not for what Emily did, far from it, but for the lessons I've learned in the years since. I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible, that true happiness comes from within, and that the people who truly care about you will stand by you, even in your darkest moments.